What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another engine build. This engine is going to be for me. This is going to be the most powerful X-seat build engine I've ever built. I just want to give a shout out and a huge thank you to B&R Motorsports. We pretty much got all our OEM parts from him. We got our piston from him. This will be the highest compression piston I've ever ran. We'll go into detail on this a little bit later. We got a nice brand new OEM cylinder from him. He had previously already done our head work. This is a ported head, +1 valves with cams. We will be swapping out these cams to a more aggressive cam package. We will have those soon. Tons of OEM miscellaneous parts for our engine build. We have all the internals here. OEM crank we also got from B&R. Huge shout out and thank you to Muffs Motorsports. We got these cases from him, and another thank you to Hannah Hunter, Hurricane Blastings. She cleaned these bad boys up for us so they look brandy new. We do have not brand new, but we will have some brand new powder coated side case covers, clutch side and flywheel side. Those have already been sent to Sport Bike Powder Coating. My man Herb Willis is going to take care of those and do the metallic black like we always do. So we should see those maybe in a few weeks. We're going to heat these cases up just like we always do. The bearings are frozen. They've been in the freezer for 48 hours. So these things should go in real smooth and real easy. We're going to take you along. This is going to be one complete video with the entire build, so it's going to be on the long side, guys, but hopefully this will be the best video I've done. Going to try to go into detail and everything, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. But let's get to work. All right, guys, we got these out of the oven. We got all our bearings here. Let's start with the main. So I just use my grill, guys. I like to get the cases up to 250 degrees. It seems to work best. And just keep your bearings in the freezer overnight. One thing to pay attention to on the bearings, some have this little slot for the retainer clips. You're going to want to make sure that these always face up. So we'll try to pop this in nice and easy. Drop right in. That's really nice. This one is for the shift drum. I might have to just tap that one a little bit. That's that one. I did get all the OEM bearings from B&R, which was nice. The one-stop shop. Most of this stuff he has in stock, so it's easy to get everything in one shot. His prices are just a little bit cheaper than Rocky Mountain on some of the stuff. I think I saved like 20 bucks on the crank, which was nice. And the bearings were more or less about the same. But if you put a big package like this together, he always will take care of you. All right, so this one is for right here. That one dropped in nicely. We got one more. Just make sure we got the right one. All right, we're gonna flip this around and then we can put the two on the other side in. So same deal with these. These have a little lip. You wanna make sure that goes up. Have to tap those in. We'll let these cool down for a minute and then we will do all the retainer clips. We're just going to check this side to make sure these are all still in place. All right, guys, we got the other case. Same deal, the little indentation, make sure that is facing up. Nice, nice. We have our counter shaft bearing. This is a sealed bearing, so this needs to face out. Ooh, these cases are so hot. Oh my God. Nice, nice. That went in real nice. So this is part of the counter shaft, one of the 2 bearings for the counter shaft. This one we might have to tap in. Oh, it's going. Yeah, we're gonna tap that in just a little bit. Yep, that one's in. Make sure they're all in. All right, so we're gonna put this one outside and let it cool. And then we can work on all of the retainer clips and the bolts. All right guys, this thing is cooled down. You can touch it, everything's nice and cool. So we will be putting a little bit of red Loctite on all our bolts. So obviously you have these larger retainer clips. Those go on the main bearing, crank bearing. All right, see these bolts, which are a T40. These are 16 foot-pounds. Hopefully I can do this. Oh, right there. That was good. All right, and then what you have to do is you just have to bang over the head on these. There's a little slot in the retainer clip, you can see right there. So you just want to bang the head of the bolt into that. That just locks it in place so it can't back out. That's good. All right, then these next 2 are kind of like a C-clip. That one is for that one where the shift drum bearing goes. And this one is on the transmission bearing side. So this, pay attention guys, this can go both ways, but you can see there's a little bit of a groove in the engine case. It's gonna go towards the front of the engine. So just make sure you have it towards the front of the engine. These are 2 8mm bolts, 7.2 foot-pounds, or 86 inch-pounds for these 4. That's that one. That's that one. And we got the other 2 right here. There's 1, there's 2, and then we have 1 more on the opposite side. Right here, this guy, this is a smaller Allen bolt, which is a T30, Torx bolt, T30, and the torque specs on that one are, so it's 8.7 foot-pounds and 104 inch-pounds. All right, that's that one, that's all of them. So we'll go check on the other case. It should be cooled by now and we can do that one. All right guys, we got the other case half, it's cooled down. Same deal, red Loctite on all these bolts. $16 foot-pounds. There's that one. Bang down the heads. That's good. All right, then we got a couple, just the last couple smaller of the Torx heads. One on the counter shaft bearing, two on that one actually. Not sure if you guys can see in there, hopefully you can. That one's way at the bottom. And then we just have one last one on the other side. That is part of the counterbalancer, one of the two counterbalancer bearings. That is good. All right, then we just have one more bearing we need to pop in, which is for the shift shaft lever. All right, I'm gonna put just a little bit of assembly lube inside this for this bearing. These ones usually go in pretty easy, but that should help a little bit. I'm gonna put a little bit on the bearing too. Get it in place. So I just have this Harbor Freight bearing installer kit. It's got multiple sizes. Works like a charm. Couple taps. And she is in. Then we have a seal. That looks pretty good. And then we have a CIRCLIP. All right, and that case half is done. All right, what I like to do now is I just like to put some assembly lube inside all these bearings. I'll put it even inside the bearing a little bit too. Just a little bit. Looks pretty good. All right, so we can put our oil pickup screen in. That's just an Allen number 5. This will be 86 inch-pounds or 7.2 foot-pounds. All right, that's good for that. We have a dowel and a little O-ring that goes in there. So for all my little dowel pins, I just like to put a little bit of oil on them. It just makes it easier, hopefully makes it easier if you do pull this apart. You can try to reuse them. But for this, we did go out and buy all new ones. We have a couple larger ones for the main cases. One goes right there. And then another one right here. All right, we have our one engine screen that can go in, oil screen, one right there. The other one will go on the other case. And then we can pop the transmission in. All right, that's good. We will be changing this O-ring. We'll do that after. We can put our shift drum in place. All right, then we can put our shift forks in. Put a little bit of assembly lube inside where the little pins sit. That one's in. And we have the other one. I'm going to put some assembly lube on just the other end of this transmission, so hopefully it'll slide in a little easier on the bearings. Same with the pins for the shift forks and the other end of the shift drum. Now we do need to just change this O-ring. Slippery. All right, there's that O-ring. We can drop the crank in. All right, it's time for our gasket maker. I'm gonna put this on the other case half, the one that doesn't have anything in it. Just gonna go right around the outside of the perimeter of the case, and that's all you need. YAMABOND 4 is what I use. Don't go too crazy with this, guys, just a little thin layer. If you feel like you put too much in spots, you can go back and clean it up a little bit. And if you feel like you don't have enough in spots, just go back and add a little bit. Just look it over and make sure there's no areas missing. All right, that looks pretty good. We're gonna pop these cases together. Put a little bit of assembly lube on the crank, and I will go ahead and put some on the other case half bearings. All right, here we go. We got everything in here. Just double check. Transmission's done. Oil screen, the little dowel in the center, crank, oil screens. I think we're good to go. Rubber mallet, just tap on the right side, just gently. It'll drop down, then once it does, just even pressure on the crank and the counter shaft. I like to spin it just a little bit. Almost there. Pretty close. There we go. All right. We get all the bolts in here. There are 4 bolts on the inside of the engine, so make sure you don't miss those. And then you have all the ones on the outside of the engine. So we will, so these two I'm going to do last. We will have to put that shift shaft lever assembly in before those. So we'll do all the other ones and then I'll pop those in. We'll get these down. These are 104 inch-pounds, or I believe it's like 8.7 foot-pounds. All right, we can torque these bad boys down. We'll start with the inside ones first. And then we'll work the outside of the cases. kind of get them snug, and then I'll go back and hit them again. All right, we'll work on getting this shift shaft lever installed. We do have a brand new OEM setup. Let you guys see. So there's a dot on this, and then you have a corresponding dot to that. You just line those two up, and that's how it's keyed. So hopefully you guys can see the two dots right there. That's in place. Then there's just a washer and a CIRCLIP. See it on there? So that's that. We have a brand new spring for it. We will throw some assembly lube on this, and then we can just slide it in place. We can put our last two engine case bolts in. Torque them down. All right, we got a couple of seals on this side. We have the shift shaft that goes right in here. I can kind of just push it in with your fingers. So this one I just like to use a socket. That looks good. I do have to see if I have this collar. I think I do somewhere, I just have to find it. All right guys, we did get some parts in, some OEM stuff we were waiting on. We got this guy for here. We got our little sleeve, and then we got two new bolts for that. So we'll put that in first. All right, we're gonna work on the counterbalancer and then the gears on the clutch side. We can pop that through. I am gonna put just a little bit of assembly lube on the counterbalancer right here. All right, well, I'll show you guys quickly. So this is the only pretty important thing as far as lining these gears up. So you will see on the counter shaft gear, there's a little dot right there. And then on the first gear that goes on the crank, There's a little dot there. These shafts are keyed, so you need to just rotate them accordingly, and then the end result is going to look like that with the two dots lining up together. So you can see the little indentation right there. We'll just find it on this. I see it right there. That's that one. And then we will work the counterbalancer side. Which it has to spin like that. This is gonna have to go like that. We have our two dots perfectly in line with one another. So we have this little tab for the nut on here, brand new OEM. And then we have our other two gears. Well, our one more gear on the crank side. And then we have a lock washer. And then the nut. We can torque these down. All right, we're going to start with the primary gear drive nut, which is a 27 millimeter. It's 80 foot-pounds. We got this little gear jammer from Motion Pro, which is sweet. Check that out, guys. And then this should hold. We can torque her down. This is going to be tough. Oh man, just got it. All right, so we need to do the bottom one, which this guy does not fit in there. So we do have a little trick for that. 22 millimeter, and it is 36 foot-pounds. So we will just set our torque wrench to 36. I'm going to use a washer between the two gears. Hopefully it will hold. And that's that one. And then all we need to do is just lift up one of these tabs around the nut. That's just a safety lock nut. So this bolt will never be able to come off. It looks pretty good. All right, we're going to start with the spring for the shift drum, and then we'll put the last little piece on the shift drum on. So this is the little mechanism with the spring, the washer, and the nut. 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. All right, so what I like to do is I just like to pry this thing back with a screwdriver. And then you can pop in the part of the shift drum. Just make sure you line it up. There's a little groove for the dot that goes in the shift drum itself. Make sure that's lined up. And then you can put the bolt in. 12 millimeter for that guy. And it is 22 foot-pounds. All right, that's good. Then we will try to get this girl into neutral. All right, guys, we're gonna finish up the shift drum with the little spring mechanism. Be very careful with this thing. these pieces can fly out, and there's little springs and little covers on them that you can lose very easily. So you got to kind of just squeeze and turn it, and then this thing will kind of just drop in like that. And you can line that up. That's two 10mm bolts. Same deal. These are the 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. Those little springs gotta kind of squeeze inside of this little C bracket, so just make sure that it's sitting all the way in before you tighten it up. I could tell it wasn't in all the way, so we just pop those clips in, and now we can tighten her up. All right, so that is that. Kind of get it in position like straight. Then we can put the shift lever shaft in. Make sure you guys have the washer that goes on the shift lever shaft first. I'm going to put a little bit of assembly lube on it. And then there is like a little washer that goes on here with a little slot in it. And then you can just tap this through. This is going to line up with this shaft here, and the other end is going to go on where that washer is. You might just have to adjust the spring mechanism so it goes up into place like that. All right, next we'll do the oil pump. All right, so I'm just going to put a little bit of oil in here. Along with this part of the impeller for the oil pump. You can slide that in. Make sure it spins. There are two little dowel pins that go in here. I like to put a little bit of oil on those. Like I said before, there's one on the bottom. And put a little bit of more oil inside that guy, and then we can put the oil pump in place. Just spin it until it lines up. That looks pretty good. Two 5mm Allens. Maybe you guys can guess the torque specs on this. If you can't, I'll give you a hint. It's 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. It's pretty much every bolt, every 6mm bolt is those torque specs, with the exception of the engine case bolts, the main engine case bolts. There's one. There's two. All right, now we got the oil pump drive gear. That's this guy right here. Just lock it into place with this oil pump gear. There's a washer. And then a new CIRCLIP. All right, we're gonna keep moving along with the clutch side. I do have an 09 2010 8 rivet clutch basket. It's used, it's a little grooved, but just to keep things moving along until I get the new one and the new clutch, we're just gonna put this together stock for the sake of the video, and then we'll do a separate video. We'll eventually upgrade this to a recluse clutch, but we don't have that yet. But we can do that in a separate video, like I said. But for the sake of this video, we can keep things moving. I do have a mint slipper clutch 2014 plus, and actually I'm gonna run that when I break this engine in for the first couple rides. I actually do like the OEM slipper clutch. As long as you change the basket, I think it's actually a really good clutch. So let's we're gonna put a little bit of assembly lube on here. Then we can slide our basket on. So when you put this on, you want to push it and push it and turn it. You're going to see it how it locks in. See it right there? So that is all the way in. What it does is it locks into the primary drive gear and the oil pump idler gear. So just make sure that goes in all the way. We then have our updated washer. This is the 2009-2010 washer. We're just going to put a little oil on that. That will just slide in and it'll turn. You know you got the basket in all the way if you got this little bit of space, and that can move freely. So just make sure you have the basket in all the way before you put this whole clutch back together. Next we can get our inner hub. So we have our inner hub. That's just going to push in just like that. All right, we did find one of these stock ones. Like I said, I just bend that up just a touch so it's easy to grab. Pop that in there, and then we have our nut. 30mm nut, and this will be 54 foot-pounds to torque it. So we do have the handy dandy OEM clutch basket tool. We have both. We have the universal one, the Tusk universal one, which is good. That one works with the Recluse basket. And then we have the EBC Yamaha one, which is awesome. So this is going to basically lock the basket with the hub, and it'll allow you to hold it just like that. All right, let's try that. All right, we got it. All right, then we can just lift up that little tab on the washer, jam it against the nut. That looks pretty good. We're going to work on our clutch pack now. The judder springs are in there, so if you are doing this and it's brand new and you're using the stock clutch, you're going to make sure you put the judder springs back in there. If you are using aftermarket plates, they might not reuse the judder springs. Just make sure you check the directions on whichever ones you're using. But if you do use OEM, you will need the OEM judder springs. And then it kind of starts with this smaller friction. It's thinner as far as that way goes versus the normal one. So that's like a normal one, but just pay attention to that. So you will start with a friction, then a steel, and repeat until the whole pack is done. Just line them up in the basket, and then the steel will line up with the hub, and just pop all these guys in. All right guys, before we put the pressure plate on, we just need to put the push rod in. Just got to kind of line that up with the clutch lever up here. There's a little slot in it. We're just going to put a little bit of assembly lube on here. So the smaller end goes in first. That's going to hook into the little notch that's on this little push lever. There's a little ball bearing. And then you actually have the throwout bearing right there. So you can see it's working with me pushing on the lever. So now we can go ahead and pop the pressure plate on. All right, that guy is in place. We have these three little rubber bushings that go in. They can only go in one way. Pop those in. Then we have our 3 springs. And we have our plate. And then we have 3 10mm bolts. These are 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. My larger torque wrench does not go that low, so we'll just use the smaller one, which is fine. We're going to start these with the gun, just easy. All right, and then we can torque them down. This is probably going to spin, but I got a little trick for that. I'll get that up. I'm gonna just put my washer down in these 2 gears again. All right, there's 1. There's 2. All right, there's 3. So that's going to be it for the clutch side until we get our cover in. We will move on to the flywheel side. We can actually finish that. All right, we can work on the flywheel side. Put the flywheel back in, the last couple of gears, and the timing chain guide, one of the guides at least. We did get a nice brand new OEM washer and bolt for that guy. We'll have a sprocket on there a little bit later. Let's start with the timing chain. You can drop it in from the top, wrap it around, make sure it's locked in those gears, and then we have our guide. There is a little bushing that goes inside the guide, so make sure you have that. You can drop that in. Then we have the little bracket that holds that in place. These are 2 5mm Allens. I'm going to put just a little dab of red Loctite on these. It's probably not necessary, but I'm going to put it on there. And these are also the 7.2 foot-pounds. Or 86 inch-pounds. All right. We did upgrade the bolts in this to grade 12s. That's something you're going to want to do, guys, if you haven't already. The stock ones can shear, so it's definitely not good. All right, we got the key, but before we put the key in, we'll put a little bit of oil on that. I like to pop this gear in first. Sometimes it's tough to get it over the key. Then you can pop the key in. You can tap it down with some pliers or something. It'll go down just a tiny little bit. That looks pretty good. And then we can get our flywheel, just line up the groove. You can see there's a groove right there. You want to line that up with the key, and it'll slide, hopefully slide right in. You will have to spin the gear behind it so it locks in the one-way clutch. It looks like we got it pretty good. That looks pretty good. And then we have our washer and our nut. 17mm nut. And this is 47 foot-pounds. One more good one, hopefully. I'm just gonna get some leverage on this. There we go, got that. All right, then we got the couple of gears that tie into the starter. We're gonna put some assembly lube on those. Put a little bit in there, a little bit in there. We will be getting a new starter. Don't have that yet, so we can show you guys that later on in the video. All right, so this is just going to slide right in there. That ties in with the flywheel. And then we have the dampener. That's gonna go right there. Just spin it and it all locks in. You can see how it all locks in. All right, we can put our fresh flywheel side cover on. We got a couple dowel pins. I'd like to put a little oil on these. I've been telling you guys that all the time. It just might help, it'll help to take the cover off and hopefully save them. Sometimes they can get seized in the engine, so it's nice when you can save them. Brand new gasket, line that up with the dowel pins, and then we can grab the cover. Just line this up, make sure that the rubber boot is lined up with the case on top for the stator wires. Couple taps and she will sit right on there, nice. That looks pretty good. Now we have a bunch of brand new bolts for this. That guy goes right there. And then we got a bunch of these guys that go in right there. And then we do have the new bracket that goes up there. These are all 8mm. Same torque specs as what we've been doing. 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. Get these started. We can torque them all down. We will change this cover out for the oil tank cover. We'll change that out for a clear one. We'll probably get one soon, but for now, just for the sake of keeping this video with just, you know, the stock parts for reference, we will put the matching powder coated one on. I am doing, this is a black metallic that I've been doing this combination for many years on my engines. It looks really good. Definitely gives it a little bit of pop. We'll also get some new timing cap plugs from 38 Motorsports. Probably do blue ones since we have a lot of blue on this build. So that'll look pretty good. All right, we can torque these guys down. All right, we'll get our oil cover. So that you can just line up with the dowel. And then you will have to just make sure you put it in place when you put the cover on, because it only has that one dowel pin, so the gasket can move. So just make sure it's lined up and you don't put a hole in the gasket. And then we can get these bolts in here. And we have one little guy right there. Get these started. These are also 8mm and the same torque specs, 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. All right, that's the last one. Definitely looks good with that black metallic. All right, it's the final step on the clutch side case cover. We're gonna put the cover on, the last few pieces that go on this side, and wrap this side up. We do have a couple dowel pins that go on this side. I like to put a little bit of oil on them. One up top, and then one down bottom. We do have a collar and an O-ring. This is part of the water pump system. just like that. And then we do have a brand new OEM gasket. And then we can throw our cover on. So guys, what you're gonna wanna do is as you push this cover on, you will want to rotate the impeller, and that's gonna lock into this gear right here. So you can get it started, get the dowels lined up, a couple taps, and then just twist that. You'll feel it lock in, and then you can send it home. You can also just double check by turning the impeller. You'll see how the engine moves, so that means we are locked in. And then you guys know the deal, 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds for the torque specs. All right, then we can do our oil filter and cover and water pump cover. We do have a couple dowel pins as well that go into the water pump cover. They are these tiny ones. One on the bottom, one on top. These ones I don't put oil on because I never had a problem with them getting stuck. Gasket can go on. And then our water pump cover. Line it up, and then some bolts. This bottom short one, you're gonna make sure you put a new copper O-ring. That is also your drain. All right, now we can do our oil filter and our oil filter cover. The cover has an O-ring. Pop that on there. And then we have 3 little O-rings that go on the case cover. Oh. Our new filter. .2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. All right, it's time for our clutch cover. Now this is just going to be temporary until we get a new recluse cover. It has 2 dowel pins. I'm going to do the same thing with a little bit of oil. You can pop those. There's one on top, one on bottom. We have our gasket. Figure out how it goes, like that. And then we have our cover. All right, we do have a brand new OEM starter. I like to just write the date on it just to keep track of it. We're just going to put a little bit of oil around this O-ring. It'll slide in a little bit easier. These are also 2 8mm bolts and the same torque specs, 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. Just kind of rock it back and forth and it'll lock right in. All right, it's time to start working on the piston. What I like to do is before I do the oil rings is I like to get one CIRCLIP on one side of the piston. It's gonna make things a little easier versus trying to do them both when the piston is on the rod. So these can be tricky, just take your time. A tiny screwdriver or a pick will make it easier. You wanna kind of get one end started on the bottom, and there's a little notch in the piston. That's where you can put your little screwdriver. So if you get one side close to that, just make sure you got a good grip on it because these things can fly out if they slip. So kind of started. You can use a little hole just to finish it off. All right, so now we're going to do our piston rings. We will start with the oil rings. We got our piston facing forward. So we have our first oil ring. This is the center oil ring. You're going to keep the seam in the back, basically just centered on the piston, right on that little hole. Make sure it does not like overlap itself. It's going to basically be between the two oil holes in that thing. All right, then we got two of these. Basically, one's going to go on the bottom, one's going to go on the top. So you're going to wrap those around. And these are right around, I don't know, maybe like 7 o'clock on the piston. All right, that one looks good. And then the top one around this side. Oh. All right, then we have our two compression rings. Pay attention, there is usually a letter on these, a T, that's the top, and then you have one that is thicker than the other. So the thinner one is going to go first in the middle. And this one is going to go at like 11 o'clock, kind of close to where that valve indentation is. Get that close, that looks good. And then our last one will go on the opposite side, kind of like 2 o'clock, or just about where that valve indentation is. Looks good. All right, we're ready to put this on the rod. All right, I like to put a little bit of oil on the wrist pin and inside the piston. You can get it started, and then we'll just line it up on the rod and push it through. And then we can put our other CIRCLIP in. Make sure you put a rag over the hole just so you don't drop anything in there. That looks good. Wipe this off. All right, now it's time for the last CIRCLIP. That looks good. All right, now we're gonna get our cylinder ready. We do have a brand new OEM cylinder. We're just gonna put a little bit of oil on the inside, and then we can drop that down. But before we do that, we need to just put on our base gasket, and then there's a couple pins that go in here. We'll put a little bit of oil on those, and then we can drop them in. Right, so I just like to lay the timing chain just right in its little spot. We'll just grab it with a pick after. It's going to make this a lot easier. Double check our rings, make sure they're in line. So popping on the cylinder, sometimes it can be a pain. You don't want to twist it, you want to kind of rock it, kind of like that. front to back, up and down kind of. So don't twist it, because if you twist it, you will change the orientation of the rings. So I like to kind of start it from the back of the piston, compress the rings, pop it down, and then you can work the middle ring and then the last ring, and just have a little patience with it. It will go. Take your time. If you feel like you don't have it, just pop the cylinder off, regroup, and try it again. So we're going to just line the back up first, compress those rings, compress that top compression ring. And then we can work on the middle ring and then the oil ring. Just like that. What we're going to do is we're just going to put this one 8mm bolt for now, just to hold this down. We're not going to tighten it, just so we can rotate this a little bit. We will grab our timing chain, holding the timing chain so it doesn't bind up. Make sure everything looks good. Which it does. And now we can work on the cylinder head next. All right, we have a couple more pins that will oil up and pop in. We have the other timing chain guide that we need to pop in, and then we can put our gasket on and then put the cylinder head on. I like to put a zip tie around the timing chain to make it easier to grab. Just right in the center. Alright, so we got our timing chain guide. Our 2 pins. Then our compression gasket. Now we're ready for the cylinder head. Just feed the zip tie through the top, and then you can grab it and just line it up. You can remove our zip tie. I just like to use a screwdriver to hold the timing chain. Just pop that in there for now. This thing looks good. We'll put our 2 8mm bolts in there. We'll just snug them up for now. We're not going to tighten them. All right, then we have our head bolts. I'm going to put just a little bit of oil on these, just on the threads, and drop those in. There's 2 on the inside, and then there's 2 on the outside. We'll start these by hand as far as we can go. All right, we'll get these down. So this is kind of like a 4-step process. The first round will be 28 foot-pounds. I'm actually going to just pop these down with the drill. Nice and easy. Otherwise, I'll be here all day trying to turn them by hand. All right, so first round of torquing 28 foot-pounds. That was that one. There's that one. There's that one. Then you loosen them up. Not too loose, just a couple turns. All right, then our second pass will be 14 foot-pounds. There's 2. There's 3. There's 4. Turn this wrench up. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna mark the head bolts. Basically mark the inside center of each bolt, and we're going to make 2 passes, 90 degrees for the first round and then another 90 degrees for the second round, basically bringing this mark to the outside of the head. I think I can do it one hand. One more. Yeah, so that one's good. So we're just doing these halfway, and then we'll do another round where we finish them off. So our lines are all facing like front to back. All right, so that's the first pass, and then we're gonna finish them off. So all these marks will face the outside of the head. Pay no attention to my torque wrench clicking. This isn't set by a number. We're just going by those lines. I got my torque wrench kind of maxed out, so it's gonna click. That looks pretty good. I think I can do it with just holding the engine. A little more. A little more. That looks good. 2 more. Oh, a little more. That one's good. Last one. Just a little more. That is good for those. All right, we can torque down our 8mm bolts that are on the cylinder and the head. Those are 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. There's 3. All right, next is getting this engine timed and dropping the cams in. We need to make sure we are at top dead center. I'm gonna check that now. It needs to be on the compression stroke, guys, so make sure that's when the piston is traveling up. Make sure you guys check that. Also stick a screwdriver where the spark plug is so I can watch it going up or down. All right, we got it. I don't know if you can see it. You can see the notch on the engine case, but you might not be able to see it. All right, now we can start with our exhaust cam. We'll get that in. You're gonna pull the chain tight on that side so it lines up. Make sure it's not loose. We will put some oil on top of the valve train here. All right, so here we go again. There are 2 timing marks, so don't get confused. You want the lobes facing up If you go by the second timing mark, which is higher up, the lobes are going to be facing down, so that will be out of time. And then now we have our intake cam. You can count the pins. I believe if you count all the pins from timing mark to timing mark, I believe it's 28 pins. If you could put a Sharpie mark on it and line it up, super easy, but we're not going to do that. We're going to just take a couple tries and get it. So we're like 2 teeth off right there. That should be it. Right there, looks good. Now we're just going to double check all our marks. We're going to double check the flywheel mark, which looks good. Piston is at top dead center, and our 2 marks are parallel with the head. It looks good. I'll show you guys. You can see there's one of the marks. There's the other. All right, so next we just have our bearing retainer clips. Place those on top of the cams. There's a little slot in the bearing. Make sure you push the cams all the way back so they are locked in. That looks good. And then we just have our cam caps. You can tap those down. If they're lined up correctly, they will tap down nice and easy. We're gonna actually put a little bit of oil on that first. Now we can pop this back in. We'll just start these by hand quickly. These are also 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. You're gonna do it just like the cylinder head in a crisscross pattern with the outside bolts first, and then you can do the 2 middle ones on the intake side last. All right, that is good. All right, it's time for our cam chain tensioner. Make sure to wind up the tensioner before you go to put it in. To do that, you're just gonna take off the cap, and then you're gonna take a tiny flathead and just wind it up and hold it, and then it will stay locked in. I'll just show you guys quick. So that's how it comes out of the engine. So now you just wind it up clockwise with a little bit of pressure till it stops, and then it'll lock into place. Keep in mind that this thing does have an up lettering on it, so make sure it goes up. And then the bolt that's on the inside of the engine case does take a copper washer, so just make sure you don't forget that and replace it. So we do have a nice new gasket. Pop that on there, and then we can get our bolts started. Same torque specs for this. It's going to be 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. Then we can release the timing chain, put the small screwdriver back in there, and just turn it counterclockwise, and it will spring out. And then we'll just give the engine a couple complete rotations just so it'll adjust, and it'll put tension on the timing chain. Looks pretty good. Check the chain, it's very tight. And then we just have our little cap. That's a 10mm bolt for the timing chain adjuster. Pop that on there, tighten that up. We do have a new O-ring for the dipstick. We can pop that on. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yeah, you can see that. I can put that on. We will have some new timing covers coming for this, and the speed sensor delete. So for now, we're just going to use these old ones. We'll just put that on for now until we get our new ones from 38 Motorsports. That's a 5mm Allen. Same torque specs. And we do not have a valve cover gasket yet, so once we get that in, we'll just wrap up the valve cover. That's easy. So we also have a new spark plug. We'll do that all in one shot with the valve cover and the spark plug. We'll throw our timing caps in quick, and that will be a wrap. I mean, this engine is pretty much done. Like I said, we just need that valve cover gasket and we're good. These actually don't look too bad. They are used. We want some nice shiny new ones to match our shiny new build. All right guys, we did get our valve cover gasket in. Just make sure that the gasket is sitting flush. Sometimes it can not lock into the groove. It's usually where the spark plug goes. Just make sure that that thing is locked into the groove. This looks pretty good. A couple new bushings on top and a couple of new bolts. Same torque specs for these number 5 Allens. 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. We will go ahead and put our spark plug in. All right, we do have our rubber boot for the throttle body. I'm going to pop that on quick. So if you are running a ported head, I cut out the inside of this. I've showed you guys this before. Just cut that out. This way you get maximum airflow. Make sure you have this the right way. I think I can actually only go on one way. But you want the groove for the throttle body to be facing out. These are all 5mm Allens, same torque specs, 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. All right, we also have our little bracket for the clutch cable. We're gonna pop that on just loosely for now, and then we can, once we put it in the engine, we will fasten it later on. That's also a number 5 Allen. I'm just going to put it in finger tight because we will have to take it out to get our cable in there. We also have a new hose clamp for our throttle body, for the throttle body boot. Get that on here. All right, as I was just looking this over, I did notice I had one missing bolt in the engine case. That goes right behind the starter. It's right here. It's just an 8mm bolt with a copper washer. So we have a new bolt and a new washer. We'll pop that on quick. Might be tight. Oh no, we can get it. Same torque specs, 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. We're just going to put our shield for the breather on here just loosely, just so we don't lose it. We do have some new timing plugs coming and a 38 Motorsports speed sensor. We'll change out our oil cover as well for a clear one. And we also have a nice brand new shifter. We can pop that on. Try to get it lined up to where I like it. Let me just check my other quad. That looks about right. Brand new bolt for that guy. Same deal, that's a 5mm Allen. And it's gonna be 7.2 foot-pounds or 86 inch-pounds. That's that. Alright guys, that is a wrap for this real-time engine build. This is going to be a one-shot video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It definitely took a lot of time, not only building but filming it and editing it, so I really hope you guys appreciate it. If there's anything else you guys want to see as far as building an engine or anything else on the YFZ, I know I have a ton of videos, but a lot of them are older, so if there's something in particular that you want to see, just drop it in the comments, let me know, and I'll do the best I can to make it happen. We're just waiting on a few items from 38 Motorsports, our new timing caps, and then our speed sensor block off, and then we're going to do a clear oil cover from JLS Motorsports, just like we always do, and then a brand new Recluse clutch for this girl as well. Next step is to get this bad boy into the quad, get her started and then broken in, and then once the weather is good, we'll do our first practice break-in ride. But I'm definitely excited to see how this engine compares to the black quad. The black quad is pretty much identical with the exception of cams and pistons. So we went with a 14-to-1 high compression piston from B&R and then a little more aggressive cam package. Everything else is the same. We got +1 valves. We got the ported head, bored throttle body, and an intake. So as far as that goes, everything's the same. But I'm definitely excited to try this out. Huge thank you to B&R. We got most of the parts for this build from him. And that's pretty much it, guys. Like I said, I hope you enjoyed this one. Make sure you give me a thumbs up. That helps a ton. Drop some comments. Let me know what you think. And if you're not yet, please subscribe. And we'll see you on the next one. All right? Peace.